All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Once again, thank you for joining us for this edition of Phillips Pet Panel. We have a fantastic partner with us today, Shameless Pets. They're going to talk to us a little bit about upcycling, what it is, why you care about it as a retailer, and how you can help drive satisfaction for your customers and your business by taking advantage of some of the trends we see in the marketplace. If you're not familiar with Shameless Pets, they are one of the leaders in the upcycling space, which really James will talk to us about what that means in just a minute. But since 2018, they're upcycled, reused, saved from the waste stream over 1 million pounds of misfit and surplus superfoods by turning those into great treats for your pets. With that said, James, you want to talk a little bit about yourself? Let us know who you are, and then you can get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and super excited that everyone who's here who wants to learn about upcycling, that makes me really happy. So just real briefly, my name is James Bello, co-founder of Shameless Pets. Have been doing this, like Sean said, since 2018 and excited to share more about upcycling and answer hopefully any of the questions that you guys have. So with that, I'll just jump into, probably one of the first questions you might have is, well, what is upcycling? So the technical term, as you can see here, is reuse in such a way as to create a product of higher quality or value than the original. So that's the technical term. And you might be saying, okay, well, what does that actually mean? And the way that we look at upcycling as it relates to food is like what Sean said, is we have two categories. We talk about it either being a misfit or a surplus. And when we say misfit, think about it as either that food has a discoloration to it, the size is off, so meaning that it's either really too small or too large, or the shape of it. And you can see some of the examples with food that we work with that's misshapen. And then from a surplus standpoint, it's leftover ingredients, or if you think about farmers growing an excess amount. So think kind of growing pumpkins for Halloween, growing more than what the contract is needed, and then effectively having to plow that into the ground or throw it away. So kind of that's what we mean by excess amount. And the whole kind of concept behind Shameless Pets and the reason Alex and I, my co-founder, got into this was I was a buyer previous to Shameless Pets working within the grocery industry. And we would share pictures like this with consumers. And the first thing that always came back from consumers' minds was, wow, the picture of those apples look incredibly fresh. And the reason it looks fresh to them is the abundance of apples that are on the shelf. So we were deploying this strategy, but then what was actually really happening was we were throwing away anywhere from 20 to 40% of those apples. So there's 20 to 40% of those apples are just wiped out, going straight to landfill. And the other thing that, going into that picture that you probably you take for granted is that every one of those apples looked exactly the same. And like what I talked about earlier is that every apple, I'm sure plenty of you, if you live within an area that has apple orchards, have gone to an apple orchard and picked apples. Those apples on the trees don't all look the same. And here's some of those kind of imperfections within those apples. But when you really think about it, every one of these apples has the exact same nutritional density of the apple that looks perfect and clean. And then kind of looking even behind that is every one of these apples takes the same amount of water usage, the same amount of labor to grow. So our kind of methodology is how do we make sure we divert that and keep that within the food system? And then the other channel that we work a lot with is food processors. So I'm sure you guys have probably all had either like a liquid egg product, an egg beater, something from the grocery store. Well, this is the processing side behind that. And these are a bunch of eggs being cracked and all of the yolk and the whites coming out for that product. Again, what you probably typically don't look at are all of those shells, and all of those shells are getting thrown away. But really, when you step back and think about every one of those shells is an awesome source of calcium, phosphorus, really nutritional ingredients for pets. And we saw that as, well, how do we then take that shell and process it to a spot where then we can actually use it and create value and have that almost be a supplement rather than having it looked upon as waste. So again, kind of thinking about, well, how does upcycling really help? A study came out that said preventing food waste is the single most impactful thing we can do to fight climate change. And again, you kind of might be thinking about, you're probably thinking about, well, food, being thrown away, keeping it within the food system. But when you look at food waste, the amount of food that gets thrown away, it's crazy. It's staggering. Just in the US alone, we're throwing away over 63 million tons of food. And when you take a look at food waste and kind of ramp it to a global scale, to take where food is getting thrown away across the board, total food waste accounts for 8% of greenhouse gas emissions. And the reason for that is food doesn't decompose in a landfill the way that Mother Nature intends it to decompose. So that life cycle for, the pineapple to decompose might be, 8 to 10 years, where it's 8 months in Mother Nature. So that's really where the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from. And then as Sean talked about, kind of, what do you see from a retail standpoint? And, it's been awesome to see since we've launched the brand. We started working on the concept in 2015, brought it to market, kind of incorporated in 2018, and just really seeing the rise of sustainability. That was really a bet of ours, is that sustainability is going to matter. And as you can see, from a foot traffic standpoint, within pet, 80% of pet parents really consider sustainability and consider that important in the products that they're buying. From a basket standpoint, 57% of consumers are willing to pay more. And then just the size of the market continues to grow within consumer goods. So it's something that, more and more consumers are really, one, caring about, but then also voting with their dollars for, which is just, for us, just really awesome to see, not only for us with Shameless Pets and upcycling, but just sustainability at large. And then finally, just kind of walking through like who our consumer is, and really kind of thinking broadly for you guys on who is that, sustainable consumer. And what we have found is, we talk to her as the millennial dog mom, and really it's through kind of humanization. She's really treating her pets just like her babies, making sure that whatever she's putting in her body, whatever beliefs she cares about, is what she's transposing to her pet. So you can see, female, more millennial, coming from an urban setting, higher income, and then also really conscious, like I talked about, really making sure that whatever she's doing from, let's say, herself or her children, from a kind of cause related things that she's supporting, she's making sure that she's doing that with her pet and pet as well. So with that, I thought I'd kind of stop and see if there's any questions specifically around Upcycle.
Yeah, no, that was great, James. Thank you for that kind of overview of what upcycling is, how we bring it to market. For the folks on the call, there is a Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom there. If you have any questions, drop them in there. We've had a few that were kind of emailed in advance with some folks we talked to, so want to tee those up. The first one that kind of comes to mind that we had some folks reach out says, when you say this, it feels like I'm selling compost or trash to my customers. Talk me through how you overcome that objection with the customer, and how we differentiate what this is versus trash.
Yeah, it's an awesome question, and one that back in 2015 we really thought long and hard about as we were starting the brand. So when we started working within the upcycled field, what we made sure to do was any of the upcycled ingredients that we work with have a functional health benefit. So the fruits and vegetables that we work with will have some sort of health benefit for either a dog or a cat. So think, pumpkins or sweet potatoes for digestion support, blueberries for antioxidants. So that's where we make sure that we're really calling out the specific upcycled ingredient and then the nutritional properties of that ingredient. And then consumers really that's when the click happens, is that this is nutritious. This is something that I want to give my dog, and I'm doing something better for the environment, and I don't really have to think about it. That's where kind of, the magic happens, and where a lot of consumers will then purchase and then come back and repeat.
Can you talk, I just want to play that question out a little bit further. Can you talk a little bit about where you source those products from, your inputs?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go onto our site, you'll see a spot where we talk about it, because we're really transparent about that. Predominantly, we're working with farmers here in the U.S. So it's pretty much all U.S. based. It's farmers or food processors. So the farmers we're working with them on any of the odd shapes. So if it's too big, too small, They're growing excess of that. We have direct relationships with them, and then we're setting kind of quality control programs in place to make sure that as we go through the processing of that we're following the same kind of human grade HACCP plans that you would follow for what I would call conventional ingredients. And then we have food processors. So the eggshell example, we actually have, we use eggshells. So we work with processors who are working with that material on a daily basis, and then again, putting quality control steps in place with them.
Great. I've got one more question here in the hopper. Again, anyone on the call, if you guys have questions, please drop them in the Q&A there. And even if we don't get to it now, we'll make sure we get to it before the end of the presentation. But as a retailer, thinking broader about sustainability and sustainable products, what are some cues I may take away, some things I might see in a cart, some words, key phrases I may hear a customer say that would lead me to want to take them to a sustainable product versus something else?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think if you hear kind of organic, if you hear natural, limited ingredient, those are all things that really start to evoke the customer really cares and wants to know a lot more about the product, and will typically be really engaged as you talk about sustainability. So, you might not have a customer coming in saying, I want upcycled product. You might not have them coming in flat out saying, I want a sustainable product. Show me that. But when you're able to hear what they're looking for in those different areas, they're typically really, really interested in sustainability. And then what we do as well is, and what we've seen retailers do really well is kind of group sustainable products within, let's say, like an end cap or a display or something along those lines that just kind of brings people into the space to then allow the conversations to take place around sustainability.
Great answers there, and I think that's very helpful. Two questions that have come in just while you're talking there that I want to make sure we address before we move on a little bit. If you did kind of tease something, I want to make sure we get to. Look, supply chain concerns have hit everyone in this industry. It's tough. And as we look to lean into maybe a new category or a new brand as a retailer, there's always concern, hey, I bring this in, I excite my customers, and then a month later it's not there. Given that you have a very specific source for this and a specific ingredient deck there, do you have concern about sourcing limits? I kind of have an idea where you're going to go with this, but would love to hear from you.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome question. It's one that we get a lot, just us and then broadly speaking, upcycling in general. So going back to the 63 million tons of food being thrown away every year, there's a lot of food that's out there. What we do is we spend a lot of time working within the supply chain on just that to make sure that there's a consistent supply coming. One of the challenges actually that happened within COVID was a lot of those food systems got disrupted. So there was even more food that was being left to waste. So actually through this whole process, we've actually had more people outreach to us, more inbound around getting access, wanting to work with us to find another home for their food. And then like I kind of was talking to, whenever we work with a supply chain, we make sure that we kind of forecast out and we plan with them on what we can support. Because again, being a former retailer myself, the last thing you ever want to do is bring in a brand that works and then have it kind of go away. So we make sure that doesn't happen.
Great. Couple more questions are coming in. Please keep firing questions in, folks. Around requirements, do you meet AAFCO requirements with your product specifically? Yes, absolutely. So my co-founder, her name is Alex. She's a product developer, food scientist. And then we work with our regulations consultant on that. I mean, the easiest way to think about it is really think about like that apple that I was showing. If it's misshapen, at the end of the day, it's really the same apple. We're figuring out a way to process that apple to make sure that, at the end product, that apple powder that we have versus what one would call a conventional apple powder, you can't really see the difference. It's just making sure that you process it in a way. And then we follow, like I was mentioning earlier, HACCP plans and whatnot to make sure that all of the quality is there and there's no real issues through that processing. Great. We've got one more question here that came through the Q&A, but I'm going to ask if we can, and it's around specifically Shameless, your product categories and your expansion. But before we get into that, do you want to go ahead and move forward with the deck a little bit and talk a little bit specifically around the Shameless product? Love the product. Like I think your treat names and flavor names are some of the best out there. And talk to us as you walk through that. How do we sell Shameless? How do we merchandise it? What does it look like? How do we want to get into it? And then specifically, what are the next steps for Shameless? Where might you guys go, and where might our retailers be able to partner with you going forward?
Awesome. Will do. So this is an embarrassing picture of myself and Alex showing off the brand when we first started. So, but really, our whole mission is exactly like what we were talking about is upcycling food, creating sustainable solutions, but making sure that all of that food has functional health benefits. So really tying functional health to sustainability. And our whole mission, we say, is joy on a mission. We want to bring joy to sustainability. We don't want this to be some sort of kind of greenwashing or kind of saving the earth type of a brand. We want to have a lot of fun with it as well, and bring people along, have them join our community. And one of the just kind of quick examples, because I'm sure, again, you're kind of thinking, what does this mean, Apple? Like, one of the ingredients we work with is sunflower seeds. So if you think about sunflower oil, you have those seeds, they're getting pressed for oil. The husk and the kernel, after the pressing, typically are getting wasted. And we figured out a way to basically turn that into a powder. And that powder, call it a flour, is really high in protein, low in fat, and something that you might start even seeing here very shortly in the human food industry as well. So kind of, there's really those functional properties that come from all of our ingredients. It's just figuring out a way on how to process those. And then one of the key milestones since we've launched the brand is now we've rescued over 1 million pounds of food, which is awesome. And, we have our aspirations to take that even further, which I'll talk about. And then one of the other kind of things around the brand is, one, we're 100% Upcycle Certified. So that's a certification body that you guys are going to start to see more and more come out, mainly in the human food space, but think about it as like organic certification, non-GMO. Alex, my co-founder, sits on the board for that group. And it's really kind of getting the terminology of upcycled more into consumers' mindset. And then also, making sure from a manufacturing, we're utilizing solar energy, all of our packaging converted to make sure that we're utilizing recycled plastic bottles and milk jugs. So it's just kind of our way of trying to continue to push sustainability beyond upcycling as well. And then to that question, here's our product portfolio as it sits today. I appreciate the nod to the flavor names. One thing that I will say is we launched, when we launched in 2018, we had 4 flavors of soft baked biscuits, which is the top line there. It has got exponentially harder every time we launch a new item to keep up with that flavor name. So we have had a lot of duds in the kind of inspiration setting of names, but we do that really to keep the joy going and bring people into the brand. But you can see the top row is our upcycled, soft baked biscuits. You can see the upcycled little moniker where the peek through window is and the ingredient we're using. And then the top will have the health support that we're benefiting from. And then we launched a line of jerky treats in the middle, as well as dental sticks, calming. And then we have a line of crunchy cat treats. And then to also answer the question of kind of what's to come, actually at Super Zoo just a few weeks ago, we launched this line for cat. Cat has gone over incredibly well for us, and bringing a new format and technology with air dried into the cat treat and topper space. So we have these 3 that are just on their way to our finished good warehouse. We're going to be able to start bringing those out to market as well. And then the other thing that we do, and again, I kind of hinted at it a little bit on kind of joy on a mission, is we like to have fun. So we just think that there's a way, an opportunity to also add some fun through seasonal flavors. So you can see anything from holiday, Halloween, Pride, our summer and Valentine's Day as well. And we're continuing to build this assortment out next year within more cat options as well. So just kind of our way of having fun while really tackling a mission that we have with Upcycle. And then finally, like I said, we've saved 1 million pounds. The goal that we have internally by the end of 2023 is that we'll have diverted and saved 3 million pounds of food. And just our mission is to continue to push that forward and move it forward.
Love it. I love that last slide you put up there with the seasonal ones. I always say, what's something that's going to stop that shopper's eye, going to make them think, hey, I don't normally get this, but let me toss this in my cart. Let me just add it to the basket and get a couple more dollars out of that shopper's basket. And this is a super fun way of doing that and looking different on the shelf, to be quite honest. And sometimes just looking a little different is all it takes to get a customer who might not have bought to jump in and buy. And then you have them in that wonderful name family there. So
yeah, I
fantastic.
appreciate it.
Any other questions before we wrap up here from the audience? Okay. In that case, James, I know you guys have a great offer for folks who joined us today. If you want to talk about that just a little bit, and then we will wrap up and call it a day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of joke on our way to 3 million pounds. What we're saying is for anybody who joined here and just kind of supporting and wanting to learn more about the mission that we have, we're offering a BOGO offer. So no limit to this. So hopefully that allows you guys to bring us on, try us out. I think Sean team will be sending that out, but let us know. Hopefully that helps you, and also just you're able to reach out to us if you have any specific questions around the brand, around upcycling, around anything that we can do to help you communicate upcycling and sustainability within your store. We'd love to do that.
Great. That's a fantastic offer, James. We appreciate that on behalf of our retailers. Folks, if you're on the call, that will be hitting your inbox shortly. We'll have the normal deal sheet that you're used to seeing will be out to you. If you have any questions, obviously reach out to your Phillips support team, or the folks at Shameless are happy to answer questions. And we look forward to seeing you soon in the aisle. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.